Hello and good morning. Let's take a look here. Okay, so number one is a work backwards. Make sure you put your name, date, and period. And today is 110. So here we have circumference. Circumference equals pi times diameter, and they tell you what the circumference is. So you want to substitute 2 pi here. When you do that, you're going to divide by pi, and when you divide by pi, pi's cancel. So you're left with 2 is equal to the diameter. So the radius is half of that, which is 1. So to find area of a circle, it would be pi radius squared. So that is going to be 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times pi is just going to be pi. And that's going to be square inches. Any questions on how to work backwards? Again, when you divide, the pi's cancel out. All right, on this one right here, it says draw a picture of circumference. Well, circumference is if you take a circle and go around it. So if you walk around it. So the distance, if you were to able to stretch this out, that would be circumference. Okay, so it's the distance around a circle, not the inside. All right, this right here says find area and circumference. Well, the radius is 2, so this is pi times radius squared. So 4 times 4 is 16. So this one is going to be 16 pi. This one is pi times diameter, and let me take that back. This one is going to be pi times the radius squared. So that's going to be 2 times 2, so that's going to be 4 pi. Be careful with that, okay? Make sure you use the radius and not the diameter. Circumference is pi times diameter, so that's pi times the diameter, which is 4. So the answer is 4 pi. Any questions on circumference or area? Let's keep moving. Today we're going to learn about triangles. Copy down that formula. In fact, copy down everything you see right here. All right, so let's talk about it. So to find the area of a triangle, and let me just give you some background. If you take a rectangle, go ahead and draw that, and that's length times width. So the area of a rectangle is just L times W. But if you do half of that, like this, then you have a triangle. So the triangle would be half of it. So it's half of length times width. And what we say is half of base times height. And that's the formula we're going to use today. Okay? So that would be the area of this triangle. All right, anyway, let's take a look at this one. The question is, which one's the base and which one's the height? And that's a good question. Well, the trick is to look at the box and put some dots on the box. Wherever the dots touch, one's your base and one's your height. So in this case, the base would be 8 and the height is 4. So it's going to be 1/2 the base times the height. Half of 8 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Now some kids, they're like, oh, do you do half of this one and then half of that one? No, you only do half one time. So if that confuses you, multiply first and then do half and you get 16. I did half of 8 is 4 and 4 times 4 is 16. Again, don't do half both. If you do half on both of them, you're really doing 1/4. And we don't want 1/4 because that's not the formula. 2 times 2 is 4. All right, so on this one again, I want to see some dots. So put some dots on here. So the only ones we're using is 5 and 8. So that's going to be 1/2 5 times 8. And it doesn't matter which one goes first. So that's 40, and half of 40 is 20. Real simple. Any questions on how to do area of a triangle? Well, there's something else that you're going to be tested on that I didn't give you a worksheet on, and that's perimeter. So put perimeter. Perimeter is the distance around. Write that down. Distance around. It's like circumference, but it's not a circle. So all you do is add this up. So it's going to be 7 plus 6 plus 8. 7 plus 6 plus 8. And whatever that is, that's 14, so I guess that's 21 inches. Perimeter is one dimension. Okay? On this one, perimeter would be around it. Now this is the height. You don't count that. So it's 6, 8, and 5. And that is perimeter. Okay, so I want to throw that in there. Today, what we're doing is a worksheet right here. And if you can't be with us, make sure that you copy it down. Okay? And there they are. And on the back side, they look like this. Now, when you finish the worksheet, I'm going to give you a few problems in the book, but I will give you that in class. All right, so let's keep moving. Today, we're going to talk about college algebra. So go ahead and copy all of that down right there. And by the way, put your name, date, and period always. Put bell work. All right, so here we go. Now, keep in mind, Friday we have Albert I.O. as usual. So this one wants vertical and horizontal asymptotes, and then graph it, and then use a calculator to confirm, and then finish the graph from the calculator. Okay? We've got a lot going on here. Let's write the rules first. To find the vertical asymptote, you set the denominator equal to 0. To find the horizontal asymptotes, you would go ahead and look at the leading coefficients. So if it's bottom heavy, like if you have x and this one on the bottom is x squared, well, this is a 1, so the bottom is bigger. Whenever the bottom is bigger, then it's going to default to y equals 0, which is the x-axis. Write that down. That's called the first one. The second one would be like if you have x squared over x squared, where the exponents are the same. If they're the same, then it's a ratio of the coefficients. So let's say this was a 5 and a 2. Then the ratio of the coefficients would be 5 over 2. So y equals 5 over 2 would be an asymptote, which would be y equals 2.5. A horizontal asymptote. Okay? And then finally, number 3 is where the top exponent is bigger than the bottom. If the top is bigger, then there is no horizontal asymptote. Okay? Those are the rules. All right, so let's go here. What do we do here? Well, we're going to look at the leading coefficients here. And if you look, this one is a 1. This one is a 1. Okay? So since they're the same, that would be number 2, where they're the same. So it's going to be a ratio of the coefficients. So the horizontal asymptote, and I'm just going to put an H. The horizontal one is going to be -7, and this one's going to be y equals -7 over 2. To find the vertical asymptote, you're going to set your denominator equal to 0. And then you're going to solve that. So you're going to move that over, and then you're going to divide by 2. And there it is. So sketch the graph. So this is your x. So you're going to go a -3.5, or a -1.5 rather. So negative 1.5 is here. So your vertical asymptote looks like that. Your horizontal asymptote was negative 2 goes into 7 3 times and a half. So negative 3, so 1, 2, 3.5 is here. Make this one a little darker. Okay, at this point, since I have the vertical and the horizontal asymptote, what I want you to do is take out your graphing calculator. If you need to borrow one, I got some over here. I want you to graph this on your calculator and confirm that these are the asymptotes. And then sketch the graph from your calculator. I don't know how it looks. However it looks, sketch it. Okay? Let's say it looks like this, just for the time being. So this right here is negative 1.5. As x approaches negative 1.5 from the left side, that's what that little negative means. So you're approaching this one right here. I'm going to make it a little highlighted here. So as x approaches the yellow one, what happens is it goes to negative infinity. So y, the range, goes to negative infinity. As x approaches negative 1.5 from the positive side, which is this way, it goes, or the range goes, the y goes to positive infinity. Okay? Now another question is, what is the domain and the range? Domain and range. Let's talk about that. Let's just talk about domain for a minute. The domain is going to be from negative infinity all the way up to this line. So the domain would be negative infinity all the way up to negative 1.5. It's not including this one, so you put parentheses, but it is including that one. And then union, and then it's going to go from negative 1.5 all the way to positive infinity. And there it is. And that is the domain. Now make sure you check your answers in the book today. Let's keep moving. This one right here, let's take a look at it. So what I see is this is bigger than that one. So that's rule number 3. So there's no horizontal asymptote. Okay? To get the vertical, you're going to set the bottom equal to 0. Well, the bottom you can actually factor as x plus 1 and x minus 1. So you're going to have x plus 1 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. So this is going to give you a negative 1. This is going to give you a positive 1. So here's your x. So you're going to go to negative 1 and you're going to draw a vertical. You're going to go to positive 1, you're going to draw a vertical. There's no horizontal. Okay? Then you're going to get your graphing calculator and you're going to graph this one. And you're going to see how it looks. I don't know how it looks. I want you to graph it. I would say probably this goes like this. And I'm not sure about the rest. Okay? But once you graph it on your graphing calculator, finish the graph. Sketch it. All right. So today, before I give you your work, copy down this right here. We're going to work just a few more problems. Copy all of that down. Now, if I don't see you writing in class, I will lower the points that I gave you. I gave everybody 25 points. But if you're not working, remember, you will lose some of those points. Okay? So if you see other kids writing notes and you're sitting there doing nothing, no work at all, then you're going to lose some points. Okay? All right, anyway, and parents, you should know that as well. So here we go. This one right here says find the domain. and discuss any holes. Well, if you find the domain of this, what you would do is take your denominator and factor it, x plus 2, x minus 2, and then set each one equal to 0. So that would give you a negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 gives you a 0, and a positive 2 plus 2 or minus 2 gives you 0. So what you have is, for the domain, your vertical, it looks like you're going to have two verticals. You're going to have at negative 2, and you're going to have at positive 2. And again, use your calculator to see how it looks. So the domain would be from negative infinity all the way up to negative 2, and that is not included. And then union from negative 2 to positive 2, not included. And then union 2 all the way up to positive infinity. That should be your domain. I want you to check it in the book to make sure. Remember, your domain is your x. So your x is all of this, but not that one. That's like a hole. And then everything in between here, that's a hole. And then everything above that. Okay, let's try one more here. Copy that one down. Let's factor it. This one right here, let me think. 4 times 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. And we want a positive, so we want to put the plus here. Down here, I think it's 4 times 4. And that's a plus. Like that. I was kind of hoping one of these would cancel. And it doesn't look like it does. Okay? In any event, there are no holes here. You see, if this was the same as that, then you would have a hole, but it's not. Okay? Let's go to this one right here. This one right here, I'm going to factor it as x plus 2, x minus 2 up top. And then down at the bottom, it looks like x1 and x2, and a negative and a positive is 2 negatives. All right, this is a good one. Because this, let me think. Okay, yeah. Right here, you're going to have a hole. So if you have a positive 2, you would get 0. So your hole is going to be at positive 2. So x is at positive 2. Now, if you want to find your y value, you would plug your x in here and get your y value. Okay, I'm not going to do that, but you could do it. 2 times 2 is, 2 squared is 4, 4 minus 4 is 0, so it looks like you might get 0 on this one. Okay, 0 over something is still 0. All right, today's work is right here. We did this yesterday. Make sure you draw the diagram and use your graphing calculator to confirm your horizontal and your vertical asymptotes. Have a good morning.